Welcome back to Monitors Unboxed. I often get asked throughout the year about the monitors that I would personally purchase to use in one of my PC setups, whether that's for gaming, testing, or otherwise. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the monitors I've tested in 2023 that I would actually buy. This video is heavily inspired by a similar video that Optimum Tech made a couple of months ago, so shout out to Ali from Optimum and the work that he does over there. If you want to see the monitors that he would personally buy, I've linked his video in the description below. Also, in a few days, you'll see my full monitor tier list ranking for 2023. That's still happening, so stay tuned for that one as well. To qualify for this video, the monitor has to be a product I would genuinely purchase to use in one of my setups. So that would be for my dedicated gaming rig, for my workstation PC, for test setups, or for any other purpose I could think of that I would consider. What won't count is buying a monitor for testing purposes like reviews. I do that quite often, but rarely use those displays in my personal setup. And I'm not counting buying a monitor as a gift for someone else, because then, well, pretty much anything from my best monitor videos would make the cut. So let's talk about my gaming setup. I'm a fan of ultra-wide gaming, stretching back quite some time now. I've used a 34-inch 3440 by 1440 ultra-wide gaming monitor as my primary gaming display. That's not to say that exact setup would be my ideal format, but I'm typically after something wider than a standard 16 by 9 monitor. In fact, something with a high resolution that's a little larger than 34 inches would probably be ideal for me. I tested a 38-inch ultra-wide a while back that was genuinely quite nice in terms of size, but there seems to be less interest in that sort of format. Anyway, I'm currently using an Alienware AW3423DW, which it's a nice combination between the ultra-wide format, 3440 by 1440 resolution, 175Hz refresh rate, and true HDR performance thanks to its OLED panel. Given that this is a flagship tier 21 by 9 ultra-wide monitor at the moment, realistically, I don't actually need to buy a new monitor and replace it, but if I was going to purchase a monitor for this setup, let's say I didn't have a monitor and needed one for my gaming setup, it would be one of the similar format QD OLEDs that I tested this year. Looking back across the selection of displays I tested in 2023, I ended up reviewing 3 of those QD OLED ultra-wides: the MSI MEG 342C, the Samsung Odyssey OLED G8, and the Philips Evnia 34 M2 C8600. I also tested the Asus PG49WCD as a 49-inch QD OLED, but for various reasons discussed in that review, I probably wouldn't purchase it for my personal rig. Of the 3 QD OLEDs from this year that fit the criteria I'd be looking for, I would personally choose the best performing display, which is the Samsung Odyssey OLED G8. They are all pretty similar in overall performance as the panel used is identical, so you're getting the same OLED experience, but the Samsung model has a few bonuses I would genuinely find useful. One is the extended calibration options that are available through Samsung's Smart TV OSD interface. I don't really care about having all of those smart features in my monitor. I'm not going to run apps like Netflix through that interface, but the additional processing power it offers means I have fully unlocked color controls and a few more granular settings that allows for a better level of hardware calibration. I like having accurate displays, so that's a big plus for me and something I'd ideally like to get across all monitors. I also game with an NVIDIA GPU at the moment, and the OLED G8 has really nice 1000 nit HDR performance on NVIDIA GPUs with great EOTF tracking. Most other areas of performance are similar to other models like motion performance and brightness, but being able to achieve better SDR calibration in hardware and having better HDR EOTF definitely gets me across the line. What's also nice is the G8 isn't overly expensive. I'm usually willing to pay a little more for better performance and features that I would find useful. I'm not always just going straight for the bang for buck options. However, the OLED G8 at around $900 is a decent price these days. What would make me think twice are the following issues. 1, the use of mini DisplayPort connectors instead of full-size connectors. Really don't like that decision and means I have to opt for harder to find cables. 2, the OSD interface is a bit annoying to navigate through, especially to find crucial settings. And 3, Samsung often messes with performance through software updates, and some people in our Discord chat have mentioned Samsung inexplicably changing things via these updates on the OLED G8. And lastly, a few people have also contacted me recently regarding coil whine with production units manufactured in the last few months. I haven't had time to investigate that in depth, but there have been several people reaching out to me about it. I would be very disappointed to get an OLED G8, which has no annoying fan noise like some other QD-OLED monitors, only to find it had coil whine, which I hate. So that would be an instant return for me if I found that issue with a unit that I had bought. If I wasn't opting for an ultra-wide monitor and was going to try out a different format, I would purchase the Asus ROG Swift PG27 AQDM. I'd still want to be in the OLED ecosystem for the best HDR performance and black levels because I mostly play single-player games that really take advantage of HDR. There are certainly some LCDs that are good in this area, but given the PG27 AQDM is an OLED with elite response times and a high 240Hz refresh rate, I'm not sure I'd be willing to switch over to one of the LCDs that currently offer true HDR. I also do little to no static app usage or productivity work on my gaming system, so burn-in is of no concern for my use case. While I have tested 5 of the 27-inch 1440p 240Hz WOLED gaming monitors in 2023, I would choose the PG27 AQDM again because it offers the best performance. That is going to cost me around $200 US more than other options using this panel that offer a bit better value, but I would happily pay that to access the enhanced brightness of the Asus model. It's also one of just a few models that offers excellent HDR EOTF tracking, which as I mentioned is good for me as I like accuracy. Personally, I don't think these 27-inch 1440p WOLEDs have done quite enough to convince me to ditch an ultra-wide QD OLED for one. However, there are a couple of notable benefits that I would appreciate. One being the higher refresh rate, which is definitely nice to have even for single player games, as I'd enjoy better motion clarity, plus higher frame rates are becoming more accessible through frame generation technology. The other is the superior coding and panel structure of WOLEDs, which preserves better black levels in brighter environments. I don't always want to game in a dim or dark room with optimized light placement, a necessity with QD OLED. Going to WOLED would be more compatible with, say, daytime gaming on the weekend. For workstation use, I switched to using multiple 32-inch 4K monitors, and I didn't test many of these this year. Of those that I tested, the one I would personally buy is the LG 32GR93U. I think this monitor delivers a really nice combination of performance and value. It's not too expensive, it has decent response times, good color performance, it plays nicely with calibration, good viewing angles, and of course a 144Hz refresh rate, which is great for productivity apps. I'm sure some video editors out there would probably cringe at the idea of using a gaming monitor for editing or any other type of productivity use, but I would not consider using a 60Hz monitor for anything in 2023. 60Hz is just too slow, it's annoying to use, it makes desktop apps feel sluggish, text scrolling is harder to read, the responsiveness is poor. I'm done using 60Hz displays, and I would not ditch a gaming monitor for a professional display if that meant sacrificing a high refresh rate. The LG 32GR93U is very much good enough for my use case, and yeah, I guess it would be nice to have an even higher resolution or maybe certified elite tier factory calibration, but again, those are not strong enough advantages to ditch the refresh rate, at least for my use case. I'd also buy the 32GR93U for test system use because 32-inch 4K is ideal for those as well. This would purely be to use for testing, so a lot of the requirements go out the window. I probably wouldn't bother with any serious level of calibration, but the size, refresh rate, and performance are all decent enough. Having HDMI 2.1 for a test system monitor might come in handy, as would the easy access ports on the rear of the display, plus the response times aren't last generation slow. So if I'm analyzing a feature like frame generation, it isn't just blurring everything to the point of being unable to tell what is and what isn't an artifact of that technology. What's nice about monitors like the 32GR93U is that the lack of true HDR hardware is a complete non-issue for my workstation and test systems. This display has no local dimming functionality at all, so the HDR experience is pretty awful, but I would never enable HDR for this use case, so it's irrelevant, and I certainly wouldn't want to be paying more for, say, an HDR feature, say that's edge-lit dimming or something like that. I just wouldn't want to pay for that. Also, the text quality of IPS LCDs is very good, and it doesn't need any software tricks to be highly readable, a benefit that could continue even as we move towards 4K OLED monitors. With that said, I'm not sure I'd consider an OLED for my workstation or test systems yet due to the risk of burn-in. Those are the main monitors I would actually buy for my personal use, although I do have a few honorable mentions. If I was wanting to build a more bang for buck gaming setup, let's say I was having a mate over to do some multiplayer gaming, I'd grab an MSI G274QPX of the displays I've tested this year. 1440p 240Hz for around $350 US. I think it's been a little cheaper on sale as well. That's pretty hard to ignore. That's a really nice amount of value today and room for future hardware upgrades. I could very much see myself pairing that with a decent mid-range PC for a mate or kids to use happily, especially for multiplayer gaming where the 240Hz refresh is of benefit. I'd also get pretty close to buying an Asus ROG Swift Pro PG248QP. This monitor, it doesn't really make sense for my use case as someone that isn't a hardcore competitive gamer, that wants to mostly play HDR single player games, doesn't want to use a small 24-inch screen and would be irritated by the low 1080p resolution and horrible viewing angles. But despite all of that, the 540Hz refresh rate and ULMB2 functionality is really impressive. Using the desktop is so nice with this level of responsiveness, motion clarity, smoothness, and input latency, let alone games. I'd love to have this clarity and refresh rate available to me in a higher resolution OLED with proper HDR support, but I guess that could be a few years away before it's a reality. So anyway, those are the monitors that I've tested in 2023 that I would personally purchase for use in one of my systems. I'm currently not planning on changing any of the monitors that I am using at the moment. For example, switching from the AW3423DW to the OLED G8. Not really that important to make that sort of change, but every year I'll probably be reevaluating this, looking at monitor upgrades, and I guess I do have access to a fair few monitors, so I could probably choose to use some of the products that I've tested and mentioned in this review if I really wanted to. But yeah, lots of people ask me this question: what would you buy? What would you personally use? That's my guesses, I guess. That's my responses to that question for 2023, and I'm expecting that not too many of those were unexpected, being sort of a fan of OLED technology. So anyway, that's it for this video. If you're interested in supporting Monitors Unboxed and the testing that we do, then we do have our Patreon and Float Plan accounts. Links are in the description below. Also, stay tuned for the tier list, which is going up pretty soon on this channel. You'll get to see me ranking all of the monitors that I've tested throughout the year. Always enjoy doing that video. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.